Hey y'all, it's Nancy the Handy Scandy. Thanks for joining me here on the Whimsy Stamps channel. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to take some of these Whimsy products and I'm going to make stencils out of them to use in an art journal. So I have the Boho Scallop circles and I have the bold ABC dies, have journal, I have this acetate. It says Hero Arts, but that's just some scraps inside. That's just from Michael's. And I have this glossy cardstock and some Nina 80-pound index, and I'm just going to town. So I decide acetate I feel like would be the best choice. So I just used a regular sandwich here. You can see it didn't work. I also used off screen a cardstock shim. That didn't work. So here I'm removing the film from the acetate, lining my stencil back up, gonna run it through again. That still doesn't work. Again, I used a shim. That didn't work. I turned the whole sandwich over. That didn't work. So nope. The acetate was just too stubborn and ended up not working regardless of the sandwich, regardless of any way that I used it. It made a nice indentation. But no go for the stencil. So I pull out the chrome coat and that wins. I end up making all of my dies into stencils out of the chrome coat except for the largest one. On that one I used the 80-pound index only because I didn't want to cut into another piece of the chrome coat. So here we go, and we will actually be able to kind of compare at the end how the index held up to the chrome coat. And you can see I'm also using the chrome coat for the typography stencil. And I don't know if you guys have used typography stencils, how you feel about them. I just had a good time with this. I arranged everything randomly, different directions, upside down, all of that, and I think it turned out great. Now keep those letters because we'll be seeing those again. And here's a nice little tip as I put everything back in place. With the dies in place, I used an anti-static powder bag on that adhesive because that keeps the adhesive from sticking to your packaging and it makes it a little bit easier to remove those dies. So if you're like me and you reuse your packaging to store your stuff, that's a good tip. Those are all my stencils. And now here I have bundled sage, ice spruce, wild honey, and rusty hinge. Why am I using these four inks, you might ask? Just because I just got them and they're sitting on my desk. I thought they made kind of a fun color combo. So I have my 5x7 and my 3x5 gel plates. I ink up the 5x7 in the greens and I spray it with water, and I also spray down my art journal. Now my idea for this one is just to keep the color centralized across the page like I'm doing there. Making these, essentially I'm making gel plate prints, right? But I'm using the gel plates like acetate when you do ink smushing and you take the acetate to the paper instead of the other way around. So anyway, that's kind of my idea. I'm loving that hard line, but I also kind of wanted to soften it up a bit. So I'm trying to encourage the ink to kind of go beyond those boundaries. And it was doing it naturally over there on the left, and here on the right, I'm forcing it a little bit, probably more than I should, but I'm not mad about it. So I dried it with the heat tail and heat tool, and I am loving these variations in color, and I love the way it expanded beyond the boundaries as well. Here I've got my 3x5 and I'm using those rusty oranges. Again, inked it up, sprayed it down, smushed it. Keep in mind that wet on wet blends, wet on dry layers, and I wanted layers, so that's why I let the green layer dry. And here I have, like I said, the rusty hinge and the wild honey, and those I want to blend so they're wet together. And again, I'm using my spray bottle to kind of soften some of those harder lines that I'm achieving there. And again, kind of going beyond the boundaries of that green stripe. So here I come in, I do a little bit of splatter with all four colors, and I'm loving that. I just really wanted the splatter. So then I let it all dry naturally this time, and I come back in with the alpha stencil, and again I'm using it randomly. Right here I'm using both of the rusty oranges, and the stencil really holds up quite well. And in the end, I think this is the one that got the most use, and we'll again be able to see how well it did. So once I got this done, then I bring in my circle stencils, And yeah, we'll see how that goes in just a second, but I kind of get carried away with with the alpha, but I like it. I really like it. So here you can see that I have taped off where I don't want my gels to go, and this time I'm using the, what is it, Shimmery Goodness. But it really doesn't matter. You can use any dyes that you have to create stencils, and you can use any gel or pastes that you want to create something like this. Again, I'm trying to embrace the white space, but still allow my design to go just outside of those green borders. So that's my thought process. Keep that in mind as we go. So still using the Shimmery Goodness, just kind of going randomly with different size circles. And you can see that I've got several going on there, different sizes. And then I'm going to come in here in just a little bit after this dries. I set it all aside to dry after I do the splatters. And I'm loving the contrast of the green splatters and the orange splatters on the paste. This time I come in and I just have translucent paste. It's a grit paste, but really once it's dry, all it does is provides a texture. And you can see it when I start to put other inks and things over it. You can see the texture, but you really don't see a full-on circle image. And I'm okay with that. So here I have to pause for a second because I did a lot of stuff off screen. Not on purpose, but I forgot to turn my camera on. So right here, I'm trying to draw the eye back to the center, so I create this fun border. But off screen, I did a lot of different things. I heat embossed with the largest circle in just white heat embossing. Then I also used the ABC stencil in the greens. You can see those randomly on there. And I also came in with the Whimsy Stamps Dotty stencil, and I did that randomly across the page, and I heat embossed with that as well. And then I inked the edges with Wild Honey because I wanted that distressed look, but that was too harsh. So I came in with some a blending brush to soften those harsh edges, and that ate up the last of my white space. So it kind of broke my heart, but I also love it at the same time. It broke my heart because it just went beyond what I wanted it to do. But again, that's why I'm creating this little border here in the middle to kind of draw your eye back to the center where the green background is. And because that was in black and I felt like I needed black again, I went around the edges with that little dotted line. And here are all of my leftover alphabets, and I decide, well, I was just trying to come up with a sentiment or even just a word with those, and I came up with warm and cozy, and I feel like this is definitely warm and cozy. So I used my washi tape to give me a straight edge across the bottom there. My C was upside down and backwards, so got to fix that. But this is it's another really good tip. I hate the word hack. That's just me. I don't think it's a hack, it's a tip. And I just think that they lined up very well. And you guys know that I don't have a straight eye. So that was my big tip for the day. So off screen, again, I did some splattering with Posca pen. I have some black and some white, but I felt like it just needed a little bit more black, and I wanted something on a much smaller scale because everything is fairly large. So I come in with this tiny little vintage script background stamp, again from Whimsy, and just I think it's just a black ink. It's a waterproof black ink, and just going randomly. And here's where I fall in love with the whole thing. I still wasn't real sure, but once I put the stamp on the letters, even though it's barely there on the cozy, that made me fall in love with the whole thing. Because I was frustrated with myself because I kind of went so crazy, but I'm not mad about it. I feel like I was able to break up all the pattern and the color with that border in the center, and you know, I think it brought everything together. So you guys let me know what you think. Again, you know, art journals are very subjective, they're very individual, but I had a good time with this, and it's a fun idea to use your dies to create stencils. Here are all of my used stencils. Now keep in mind that I made almost all of them out of the chrome coat, and they held up really well. The typography one, obviously I used the most, and it did great. This one is chrome coat, didn't use it. This one is index. I do believe that I used it and it held up just fine. All the rest are chrome coat, and they did great, except this one. It's a little worse for wear, but I did use it the most. Now, I forgot to mention that I did put some pixie spray on all of them. I didn't want them lifting up, but I think other than the one that tore, I think they all worked really well, and I'll be able to get more uses out of them. The one that tore is only tore because I was rough and tough on it. But here is my final art journal page, guys. Let me know what you think. Everything is linked and listed downstairs for your convenience. And as always, we invite you to like, subscribe, comment, all the things. Join us over on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram. And until next time, guys, this has been Nancy, the Handy Scandy for Whimsy Stamps. Mwah! I'm out.